Hello people of YouTube, it's just Gus here, and today I'm here to deliver the second part of the infamous timeline. Now, if you haven't seen my first video, go check it out. I tell the storyline of Comograph and his adventures through Empire City and Numeray. Now, this video is talking about the storyline of Delsin Rowe, and where he picked off where Comograph left off. So, where else can we start but the beginning? From what we know, and for a quick recap of my last video, Comograph, he activated the RFI, which not only killed the beast but all other conduits, including himself and his allies. Although, what he didn't know is that years later, we actually find out that the conduit gene mutated and can now be activated naturally by any conduit. And the good news about this one is it doesn't carry the plague with it. So, we start off our adventure with a young man, Delsin Rowe. He was a small town delinquent and liked to cause up a lot of trouble, getting arrested over and over again by his brother, the local sheriff, Reggie. One day, though, after vandalizing a billboard, him and his brother see the crash of a DUP vehicle. Now, the DUP is the Department of Unified Protection. They actually captured these conduits and put them in this jail known as Curtain K. Now, when this bus crashed, 3 conduits escaped. I will introduce you to them one by one. The first of which is the one that actually gives Delsin his powers, the smoke powers. Hank Daughtry. Now, Hank, from what we can grasp from his story, which you actually learn by touching him and gaining his powers, is he spent his whole life with crime, and he knew how to escape jail once the opportunity arose. And once he got his powers, he thought he was damn near unstoppable until the DUP came along. He rambles on about how the DUP found a way to keep conduits from using their powers, and honestly, that's something that I found really interesting. Now, when Hank told Delsin this, he actually had mixed responses with this, because Delsin not only absorbed his powers, but was very confused about the whole thing. After kind of getting a grasp on his new powers, he goes off to face off Hank. Although, seeing as how it's the start of the game, you don't really succeed. Hank actually starts a fire in a tuna fish cannery, and Delsin has to fight him all throughout it. Now, once they both get out, Hank is encased in concrete by another conduit known as Augustine. Now, seeing as how Second Son doesn't really have a complete storyline for reference, not knowing if the good ending is the real ending or evil ending is the real ending, I'm just gonna go off how I did with the first video, with Good Karma. Now, Augustine wanted to know if Hank shared any secrets. We later learn that the secret she means is that she's experimenting on conduits, trying to activate some, and even curious to see what happened with others. Now, going off Good Karma, Delsin tells her to screw off, and she didn't take that lightly. She basically says this: a normal person would be afraid of her, but someone who actually has guts wouldn't. Now, she takes this very interesting, and when she asked Delsin if he was any sort of conduit, even though that she doesn't blatantly say that, it was implied. So when Delsin tells her that he's a conduit, she does not believe him whatsoever. So she starts putting concrete spikes in his leg. his friend Betty, who is the main focus around the storyline, which I will tell in a moment, want to help Delson, because, as their saying goes, they're a Komish. They help each other. They look out for each other and their well-being. So she decided not to tell anything to Augustine either, even though that she saw Delson use his smoke powers to fight Hank. In the end, you're knocked out from the concrete daggers in your leg, and you wake up 2 weeks later. You find out that the DUP has set up base in Seattle, and you also find out that Augustine put concrete daggers in pretty much everyone in Delson's village. Now, Delson, he wants this all basically to be over and done with. He wants to forget about his powers and basically want to get on with his life. Although doctors that visited said that they're not getting better. They're dying. And the only way those concrete daggers are going to come out is the same way they go back in. So Delson decides that he must go to Seattle and get Augustine's power in order to save everyone in his town. Although his brother Reggie, he is completely negative about the idea. But still, he goes along for the ride. As they travel to Seattle, they find out that the 3 conduits that escaped, minus Hank, so 2, have actually started running amok there, setting up their own little agendas and other things. And throughout the game, Delson tracks them all down, absorbing their powers. The first conduit that he encounters is a girl named Fetch. He learns from absorbing her powers that when she got her powers, her own parents turned her in. And when that happened, her brother grabbed their coats and ran. And if you play First Light, you can learn a little more about that. But I'm sticking to Delson's story here. Now, after learning how she and her brother turned to drugs in order of a way to cope with being homeless, he finds out that she accidentally kills him, and she wanted to get revenge. But the only way she could think of is by murdering drug dealers. So Delson, going off good karma, actually says, we have powers. We have to be the bigger people here, and we just can't go around killing them willy-nilly. So they decide to destroy the drug dealer's stash, and even forming a slight relationship, if you believe some things that has been said. I'm gonna leave that part out, mainly because it's not really pertinent to the story, but there's an adult joke there. Anyways, the second conduit that he finds is a gamer called Eugene. Now, for some reason, I can't remember his last name. Pretty sure I'm just gonna insert it right here. But basically, he has video powers. They find him by him abducting suspected DUP conduits and setting them free. Although Reggie, throughout all this, thinks that it's all bad. With Fetch, he wants to lock her up because she's killing drug dealers. With Eugene, it's because he was technically kidnapping people. Although, with Delson's interference, he keeps him at bay. Now that all that was sorted out, he has 3 means of fighting Augustine to get her power: video, smoke, and neon. Although, before he goes off to fight her, he's approached by Hank, the conduit that he thought he saw die when he was encased in concrete. Now, Hank says that he broke out of Augustine's entire castle place, and he wanted to basically help Delson. Well, more like he was convinced to help Delson. Now, with Reggie, he has his suspicions about Hank, and he doesn't trust him, mainly because he's a felon, and him being a cop, he does not trust any kind of criminals. Except Delson, he insists that they actually need Hank in order to get in there. But before they do, Hank wants Delson to get a new power from one of the core relays. Now, Delson asks how he knows about this, but doesn't really get a straight answer, as they were attacked by DUP. Now, after some basic gameplay, cracking a few disposable minion skulls, and doing arbitrary objectives, they actually finally get to the core relay. But Delson is now having his suspicions, saying it's how it's not glowing like the others. This is when it's revealed that Hank was working for Augustine. He made a deal with her, which we will get into in a second. Now, Hank led Delson into a trap. Delson hated that. And seeing as how Delson now has his hands stuck in concrete, he's at the mercy of Augustine. Or so you would think. His brother Reggie actually managed to get his hands on an RPG. Never told how he got that, which I really want to kind of know. But I digress. He launches a rocket at Augustine and frees Delson. Well, his legs at least. Him not being able to fight, you have to slowly make your way to Reggie as he fights off enemies for you. Now, once you get free, you actually have to fight Augustine. Mainly because you find out earlier that she kidnapped Eugene and Fetch. When you start fighting her, all bets are pretty much off, and you run into a sad thing. It wouldn't be an Infamous game without some sort of death or loss. She collapses to the floor around them and basically encases Reggie's legs in concrete, which slowly start to crawl up him. Delson, hanging onto Reggie and the ledge, wants to save him, but Reggie, he couldn't let that happen. He can't let it get to both of them and risk Delson dying. So he lets go of Delson's hand. And that was the second saddest moment, in my opinion, in the Infamous games. Your brother, who just basically blew you off at every moment, you learn that his final words to you are, "I love you, brother." Now, that really tugged at my heartstrings, kind of like how Cole set off the RFI to kill the Beast and all of the conduits. With this newfound rage in his heart, Delson started to fight Augustine with everything he had. Unfortunately, he loses. He does escape with his life, as well, and so does Fetch and Eugene. Delson, now regretting everything he'd done, says sorry to Reggie. He knew that he should have trusted him and not trusted Hank. Although he does now have a new source of information. Hank, the person who betrayed him and the one who said that he could help. Delson goes on a spree to track down Hank. Now, in doing so, you do find Hank and find out that the deal he made with Augustine was that if he helps capture Delson, he can go with his daughter, which you see in a boat. Now, going off good karma, you have a choice. You could spare him or kill him. And you do spare him. Good karma. Remember that. In doing so, Hank says you should just come with us, but Delson still has unfinished business. Now, this actually pushes to the last mission, and basically, it isn't really that fun of a boss battle. You know, getting to the boss. I mean. Now, making your way up the long DUP tower, you actually run into your friends, Fetch and Eugene. They help you along the tower and fight some DUP. Now, once you finally get into the tower, you face off against Augustine. You fight with everything you have, and she ends up letting you take her powers. In doing so, you lose access to all your other powers, and you have nothing to fight with. You also learn that she created Curtin K to protect conduits. Found out that she was a conduit activated after the RFI explosion. Now she had a choice to make as she traveled along with another conduit a little girl. Now, she had a choice when she met up with her squad. She was military and she was a conduit, but she couldn't be both. So she decided to make a third option. She was going to rescue conduits, creating the DUP, capturing conduits, and keeping them safe behind the walls of Curtain Cave. Mainly because she believes that if conduits are let out on the streets, people are going to kill them. Delsin doesn't believe that. He thinks people are able to coexist with conduits. And with that, the fight starts. Throughout the fight, you have to quickly gain core relays, which Eugene actually gets to you, which, in my opinion, is kind of rushed and doesn't really give much to Arsenal. Now, after you defeat Augustine, you return home and cure everyone who she basically harmed, starting with Betty, the person who mainly you're there for. Betty, excited that he's back and took out the concrete shards from her leg, asks where Reggie is. Delsin, with a sad expression, is unable to say, but she knows. And in the end, you actually find out that Delsin redid the vandalism he did to a billboard, a monument to his brother. And that's where Infamous Second Son ends off. Your hero's in Seattle, and you cured your friends, but you did lose your brother. And that actually does conclude the Infamous Second Son timeline. Now, I believe I said this in the previous video, but I don't really believe that Infamous Second Son was really well done and in-depth with character design mainly, and with plot development. I mean, yeah, we get it. Delsin has this one objective that he wants to do, but the whole storyline does feel rushed. It feels as if they kind of got lazy and wanted to compact everything into one. In Infamous and Infamous Second Son, you actually have to make harder decisions than in this game. In Infamous 2, you have a choice to side with the Beast and kill everyone, or to kill the Beast as your destiny says. In here, you have a choice whether to turn a gamer into a hardcore freak, or show him that his powers can do a lot of good. And in Infamous 1, you have a choice whether to activate the Ray Sphere a second time, boosting your powers, or to basically kill a woman. Like I said, these choices aren't really that difficult. It seems like Sucker Punch got really lazy. That's why I'm hoping that they continue on with this Infamous storyline, with Delsin, Fetch, and Eugene. And I really hope that it will be more slower. You get more time with these characters to learn more about them, instead of just giving quick flashes of their past. I want them to actually make connection with these characters and really get to know them more. All we learn in this game is that Delsin really enjoys having his powers and wants to save his friends. Cole had a destiny. He gained his powers and slowly learned how to use them, and wanted to help people using his powers. In the second game, we get more of that. We get more of how it was to feel. His powers were more complex and had more of a variety and technique to them. Delsin may have a bigger arsenal, but his powers are pretty much the same. Each power has a regular fire. They each have their own type of grenade type projectile, and even have a type of missile. But they're not really that different. They each have different abilities that gives Delsin different techniques to use in battle. The stasis bubble for Neon, and invisibility for Video, but these aren't really that different. The only thing that really is different about them is the sources that they come from. And really, smokestacks, neon signs, and just plain TVs. They're not really that different. Now that this video is done, I really don't have much to say about Infamous, except that if you guys want, I will make suggestions of my own Infamous game, in my opinion of what it should be. Please note, this will be a fan-made type thing, so please consider that none of this will be actually real. I love the Infamous games as much as the next person, except if I had to choose my least favorite, it would have to be Second Son. Yeah, it's good with the decisions and basically powers, but compared to the first two games, it lacks soul. It lacks a type of feel to it. And really, you have the same parkouring, have the same type of hovering that Cole did, yeah, we get that. But your powers don't really help you that much. I mean, yeah, absorbing it does heal you, like Cole's did, but there's no real reasoning to that. Also, if your power isn't nearby, you can just wait and you'll automatically be healed over time. Cole did do that too, but it was at an extremely slower rate, and the only way that you could actually get a good amount of health back is by absorbing electricity, which in that game actually had more places to get it, and if you were in the middle of a big fight, you could even use his bio leech to gain more energy to continue on the fight. With this, if you run out of power and there's none in sight and none that you can get to in time, you're pretty much screwed. Not to mention, with each power, he needs to absorb more and more core relays, and that would be bad. And I can only imagine the problems Sucker Punch would have with that in the second game. Now, I apologize for rambling on, and I know that most of you would probably click off at this moment, already knowing the storyline, and you're done. But for those of you who do stay and want to know what I'm talking about, it's basically me saying that I don't enjoy this Infamous game. I mean, yeah, it was good when I first played it, mainly because it was new, exciting, wow, we were continuing off where Cole left off, but it's still not that good. I mean, really. Everything is pretty much the same, everything's jam-packed, and nothing really has the sort of feel that the first Infamous game had to it. It had awesome side missions that you can do. In this thing, it does have side missions, but it has no real reasoning to it. I mean, yeah, find a disguised person in a crowd of people. Find this person in some other place. Find an audio log. I mean, really, these things feel like more time-consuming, and I feel like that's what they're supposed to be. Mainly because they want you to feel like you're getting your money's worth, even though that you're not. The storylines rush through, and the only way that you can get more of an in-depth feeling for Infamous is if you get First Light, or even play the first two. I mean, you don't even have to play the first two to understand Infamous, and you don't even have to understand it to enjoy playing it. But it helps feel like it's a better game. This game feels like it's rushed, overdone in many ways, and even feel like they're compensating by giving you more powers and even weirder ways to use them. Neon makes you go fast, video can help you fly, and smoke makes you go through smoke vents. So basically, what I'm saying is, Infamous Second Son isn't that good of a game. And I apologize for those of you saying, you don't like it? And I'm not saying that either. I do enjoy this game. It's a fun game to play, and heck, I would recommend it to people who haven't played. I would even recommend it as a starter for someone who hasn't played the Infamous games. But if people don't understand it, I would also recommend playing the first two games. That way you not only understand it, and get a better feel for it. Now, I believe I've said all I had to say here. You guys know the timeline now, and you know my opinion on the games. So now all I want to say is, what is your opinion on the games? Do you enjoy the storyline of the games? Do you enjoy playing the games? And heck, if you want me to, I can play Second Son as a walkthrough type thing. But who knows? It's all up to you guys. Anyways, it's just Gus here, and I hope you enjoyed the video. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. See you later.